Peace be upon you. First, I hope you'll visit my second channel for foreign stories, as I've uploaded a collection of stories there that I'm sure you'll enjoy. As for tonight's story, listen to this tale that will shock you. It's about a famous Algerian girl, well known on social media, specifically TikTok. This girl's name is Hadil Lajdal. She's young and pretty, and at first she started with very ordinary content, just chatting and joking with her audience. But she realized that the matter required more effort and compromises as usual. So, she transformed into provocative content, dancing, singing, mockery, and 24/7 fun. Anyone who sees this girl and her old videos from before 2024 would think she has no worries in the world at all, living happily, laughing, and wearing somewhat revealing outfits 24/7. She appears in live streams with hundreds of thousands of followers and all sorts of other things. But behind this cheerful persona lies a hidden secret. What is the bitter truth, or the suffering that this girl was hiding? I'm telling you, this Hadil, at the beginning of 2024, was very famous and well known. She met a young singer, a well-known singer in youth circles, named Karol Din Halilo. He was handsome and in his early 20s or early 30s. Anyway, their relationship started as a celebrity relationship, since he was a famous singer and she was also famous on social media. But things developed between them, and their relationship deepened and became romantic. They continued in this relationship for a long time until one day this singer, Karol Din Halilo, revealed the mask he was wearing. He wasn't a person who loved her or cared for her, or who was in love with her, or thinking about committing to her. No. The matter turned into blackmail and threats. He said he would publish her pictures and videos. And it turned out that during their relationship, he had been filming her, sometimes with her consent and she knew, and sometimes without her knowing that he had the camera on. He then blackmailed her with these clips, saying, "Come here, I want you to do this," and so on. He meant sex for money. Fulfill these requests, or if I publish these videos, you know what will happen. I'll ruin your reputation, and you'll be in a scandal, especially with people. May God protect us from evil. Some people are just looking for this kind of scandal, especially if it's a celebrity. The girl started crying, begging him to do what she wanted. He told her to do whatever he asked, and she did. This went on for months until she couldn't take it anymore. She started to feel, imagine living your whole life only thinking that someone could destroy you in an instant, could expose you, So the girl didn't show anyone her videos. At the same time she was suffering, she said she was the happiest person alive. And this is true. Most celebrities on social media show you one side and hide the other. Anyway, to make a long story short, after she finally snapped, the only person she could confide in was her sister. She has a sister named Hajar, is older than her by about a year or two. But this Hajar is the type of girl whose personality is a bit sharp and strong. She appeared with him more than once in videos, and she filmed herself as a famous sister. She went to her sister and told her what she was suffering from and said, "I have a relationship with so-and-so singer, and he is blackmailing me." She even showed her the messages between them and the threats and such. Here, Hajar, Hadil's sister, gave an unexpected response. She said to her, "Hadil, what do you think is the appropriate solution for someone like this? Should we submit to him? You know, a blackmailer will never stop. If you're afraid of him, he'll go further. But look at what this girl, Hajar, did. She made a terrible mistake." She told her sister, "So if we do what he asks, will he just delete the videos, for example, or will he come back and blackmail you again?" Her sister replied, "No, definitely not. Even if he tells me, I deleted the clips, I deleted the scandals and all that, he might have made a copy." She said, "Okay, since you know that won't stop the threats and blackmail, the only appropriate solution is to get rid of him, end his life." This woman, who was shocked, asked, "What do you mean?" Her sister replied, "We mean we kill him without anyone knowing, and be done with this whole thing." She asked, "How?" She's not experienced in killing. She's tried it before, But look at her courage. I'll tell you later. You'll understand from the details why Hajar is so brave. She told her. I'll tell you how. Come with me. She took her to an abandoned house in a working-class neighborhood in the middle of El Oued province, about 600 meters southeast of Algiers. This was her first time seeing this place. She asked her sister. Hajar asked, "Where are we going?" She told him, "Come on. It's none of your business." She took her into the abandoned house. This house, when you first enter, looks like an old, modest family home in a working-class neighborhood. But inside, there's a secret room. She told my sister, "Look." She opened the secret room for her, and it was a fully equipped operating room, a medical operating room with all the medical equipment needed in the most luxurious hospitals. I want to show you a picture of it. You'd be shocked at how it was equipped. A bed, operating lights, medical instruments, sterilization equipment, oxygen, a heart monitor, and other devices. Oh my God! She was stunned. What is this room? What's its story? Why is this house abandoned? And how do you know about this place? She told her, "My dear, you know I used to work as a nurse in a hospital, right?" She said, "Yes, but what you don't know is that I was fired from the hospital 2 years ago. And I didn't tell anyone about it at all. They fired me because of administrative and health violations." The girl then got up and left. The idea was to generate money for her. She rented this abandoned house for a cheap price and under a fake name, and set up an operating room inside it since she is a nurse and has experience and knows how to get the equipment and such. And she has a nursing staff. "So what are you doing with it, Hajar?" she said. "I perform abortions, hymen reconstructions, and any other procedure you need, even if it's against the law. For example, someone who's on the run from the police, been shot, and is afraid to go to the hospital, comes to Hajar. A woman pregnant out of wedlock and afraid of scandal comes to Hajar to have an abortion. Someone who's lost her virginity comes to me for an operation. Anything related to medicine is available at Hajar's. She's the sister of the famous Huda, and she has tons of clients. They even found a file containing the names of many female clients from inside and outside Algeria. With their names, civil ID numbers, phone numbers, and medical conditions, it's like a small, illegal hospital. Hajar pretended to be a doctor, not a nurse. And the nursing staff were her colleagues who had previously worked in hospitals. She said, "Okay, Hajar, what good is all this to me? I'll get rid of this singer, Khair Eddin." She said, "Now you'll be able to get rid of him." Of course, after what she did, she'd be ought. She filled a jerry can with gasoline and told Hadil to call Khair al-Din and tell him to come to the house. She told him to do his usual things, like assaulting her, and to say that since no one was home, it was a good opportunity. She told him that as soon as he entered, they would finish him off. So she made up her plan. What happened? I'll tell you what actually happened. She called Khair al-Din and told him to come. The young man couldn't believe it. He immediately told her he was in the car and on his way. She told him to come alone, and he said he would. He couldn't believe it and immediately got in the car and drove off, stopping at the house. He was surprised that it was a place like this, a poor neighborhood with an abandoned house. But the important thing was to reach his target. As soon as he entered the house, eager to see who was standing in front of him when he opened the door, Hadil was there. As soon as he closed the door, she attacked him with a large iron bar, hitting him on the head and the back of his neck. The young man immediately fell to the ground. The ground and his senses, of course, meant he was dizzy and faint, unable to even stand on his feet. The blow was in a place, the beginning of the spine, and he was indeed paralyzed, meaning he couldn't even move from his place. But then he died, and Hadil and her sister Hajar got up and pulled him, each holding one of his hands, and put him on a wooden bed. Hajar got up and brought the jerry can, the container filled with highly flammable gasoline, and poured it on Khair al-Din while he watched, of course. And they both begged. Moments later, he was engulfed in flames. According to the neighbors, Khair al-Din's screams were like, the situation was so quiet, like the stillness of the night. You could hear a needle. We heard a sound of someone in pain. A sound from hell, a sound of someone being tortured. But when we went out into the street to look for the source of the sound, we couldn't find it because it suddenly stopped. What happened next? This poor man was screaming from the intensity of the pain, and that was it. He knew he was going to die. He was paralyzed, but he managed to turn around. He fell off the bed and tried to crawl towards Hadil and his sister Hajar, who were standing watching, waiting for him to die. They didn't want to leave until they were sure he was dead. He was not trying to crawl. He was scratching the floor with his fingernails and fingers, unable to move his body. He was trying to pull himself up with his fingers. Look at the agony he was going through. And what were they doing to him? She hit him again on the head with an iron bar, hitting him so he couldn't move or reach Hadil. They waited until he died. Then they started pouring gasoline on his body to char it and destroy all traces. They also spread this highly flammable substance throughout the house to burn everything in sight, including the operating room, because Hajar was planning to move to another place since this place had become known and she was afraid of being exposed. Once they were sure he was dead, they left and locked the door without anyone noticing. They got into their cars and fled. The people who went out into the street were searching for the source of the cries for help, the sound of someone screaming in pain and agony. They looked everywhere, but there was nothing. After about 5 minutes, smoke began to rise from the abandoned house, seeping out of the windows and doors. They noticed that the fire had started to consume the inside of the house. They called the police station, who notified the fire department, and they arrived immediately. Of course, when they arrived, the fire had completely engulfed the house. The firefighters went inside and sprayed water until they were able to extinguish the flames. After the fire was out, one of the firefighters, in order to determine the source of the fire, whether it started from an electrical short circuit, an accident like a cigarette, the kitchen, or something else, began searching through the piles of ash and discovered a charred body so badly burned that you couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, just a human form. He immediately went outside and called the security personnel who were standing at the scene. He told them, "Come with me and see this." They went inside and he showed them where the body was. I assure you that this incident was deliberate and it's impossible for it to be accidental. There were spilled materials here used to start the fire, highly flammable materials like gasoline, and traces of the jerry can that was used. The biggest evidence of criminal suspicion is the body itself. Even the body looked strange. The bed it was on was charred, and it was lying on the floor, seemingly trying to crawl. To turn this into a crime, they called in forensic experts and criminal investigators, and they collected the remains, but they couldn't identify the person. There was nothing to indicate anything except one thing. This was the only lead they had. They found a mobile phone, but this phone was broken and charred. It was impossible to turn it on. They took it with them. In addition, they discovered the secret room, and strangely enough, the fire didn't enter it. It was 100% intact. They thought the fire would engulf the whole house. But apparently, because the door leading to this room was very strong and had a safety feature, the fire stopped at the door. It didn't enter the room. In the room, they found all the evidence and data, I'm telling you, patient data, names and phone numbers, and discovered that abortions and other procedures were being performed there. It's quite possible that this room was also being used for organ trafficking. This trade in human organs has become widespread in many countries around the world. It's a global trade with an unimaginable network of gangs and mafias. You wouldn't believe where they are. They pay exorbitant amounts of money. One person wants a kidney, another a liver, another kidneys. They treat people like sheep. Whatever you want, they have it. An eye, a retina, an ear, a nose, they have it all. They bring you one of these poor victims, the homeless and the needy, and cut them open, taking their kidney, a bone, a leg. They take everything. These traders, these billionaires of the world, have no qualms about using humans as spare parts. This room revealed things, a whole new, unexpected world of crime. To make a long story short, they still don't know who runs this place, who killed this body, or who the body belongs to. When they took the mobile phone, they tried everything to get it working, but to no avail. They took the memory card and were able to find the phone number. It was registered to the well-known singer, Khair al-Din. They contacted his family, but he wasn't there. They looked up his information and searched the streets. He didn't own a car, but they knew it was the singer. They took a sample to match it with his family members, and it matched Khair al-Din. He was indeed the victim. They don't know who killed him. They searched the phone records and found he had received several calls and was making and receiving calls from a famous TikToker. They arrested the girl. Of course, throughout the entire time from when the perpetrators committed the crime until they were discovered, they tracked her down and arrested her after about 2 days. The girl was living in terror and terrible anxiety and couldn't, out of sheer terror and fear. The moment they questioned her, she immediately confessed and began to cry and break down. "I have nothing to do with it. My sister orchestrated everything." "Who's your sister?" "Arrest her sister." "Come here, Hadil. What's your story?" "You and this singer have a relationship, it seems." "There were many calls over many months," she said. "Yes, indeed." She told them the whole story from beginning to end, she said. "He was blackmailing me and threatening me with my pictures and videos. The truth is, there were videos I knew about and others I didn't know about. But he started blackmailing me, demanding money and taking whatever he needed from me. Honestly, I was so tired of the blackmail and threats, and I couldn't tell anyone except my sister. She suggested we get rid of him." "You got rid of him in a house that doesn't need to be abandoned?" she said. "Yes, this house." "What do you mean?" she said. "I don't know anything about it. Just grab him and leave." "That's enough, Hajar. Now that the matter is out and your sister has confessed," she said. "Yes, they told her about the singer. We know about it. What were the reasons and the plan? Did you orchestrate it and did your sister join in? We want to know the story of the abandoned house and the operating room," she said. "After I was fired from nursing, I had the idea to use my experience and connections. I set up an operating room and clients started coming. I performed many abortions for women who were afraid. Some weren't afraid to go. They just went to regular hospitals. They weren't afraid to have abortions. It was their choice. But some had a hidden agenda, a history, a crime. They were afraid of their families, their husbands, or of infidelity. I don't know what else they went to Hajar for. In addition, I performed some illegal operations. Someone was on the run from the police and wanted to change his face, so I would inflate his face, give him an Uber or whatever. I would do something for him. I would suck someone's liposuction, for example. Of course, she didn't admit to the human organs issue, but that's the conclusion that was later drawn, that she might have been using them for the purpose of selling human organs. Even the reason Hadil mentioned, that it was because he blackmailed her with videos and photos, which wasn't convincing. They said no. Perhaps the singer Khair al-Din was one of Hadil and her sister Hajar's clients, and that the issue involved alcohol and drug use and trafficking, and that the close relationship between the singer and Hadil had led Khair al-Din to learn things he shouldn't have known and begin blackmailing her. Was it the sale of human organs, or drugs in their sale, or something else? Of course, they didn't speak. They confessed to the crime they committed. Indeed, many of the women who had undergone the operations were summoned. They didn't even know until after they were summoned that Hajar wasn't a doctor at all. She was a nurse and had been fired. They were amazed at how they miraculously survived the surgeries she performed on them. Imagine, she performed operations that require a consultant, an anesthesiologist, and some other doctor. This fired nurse performed the operations and they were successful, and things went well for them, so the case escalated. They were prosecuted initially because this was a small case, the case of the abortions and illegal operations, and so on. They sentenced Hajar and the 4 nurses who worked with her after they were arrested. One of them, I think her name is Amani, and the others are Noor, and Rama. They were sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. This is regarding the secret room issue. although they should have opened a file or charged them with trafficking in human organs. I'm sure of this, but it might become clear to us later if anything comes up with them. As for the case of the singer Khair Eldin Hadil, the famous TikToker, and her sister Hajar, the nurse, were sentenced to death. This was about 2 months ago, the final trial of the famous one. Before I conclude, I hope you will visit my second channel for foreign stories because I have posted a collection of beautiful stories there. And this is the end of our story. May God protect you. Goodbye.